Imagine for a moment that you are not just someone passing through another person's mind, but someone who lingers there, whose presence is felt even in your absence. That's the kind of impact we're talking about, the kind that isn't forced but felt, the kind that isn't desperate but magnetic. You want your specific person to dream about you, not just in sleep but in desire, in longing, in admiration. Then the change doesn't begin with them, it begins with you. You must become the version of yourself that you dream about first. You must see yourself not as someone chasing, waiting, or wishing, but as someone worth remembering, someone whose energy is unforgettable. You see, people don't dream about others because of words or appearances alone. They dream about the way someone made them feel, the energy they gave off, the presence that left a mark. So ask yourself, what kind of feeling do you leave behind when you're not in the room? You cannot fake magnetism. You can't pretend confidence and expect it to stick. You have to embody it. You have to know deep down that you are valuable, desirable, powerful, because when you live from that knowing, you start to show up differently. Your eyes shine differently. Your voice carries a different tone. Your silence even becomes louder. And all of it begins to echo in the heart and mind of the one you desire. But here's the secret most people miss. You don't focus on them. You focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally draws them in. You visualize with clarity not just being with them, but feeling the joy, the laughter, the love. You create that experience so vividly in your own heart that it sends out a signal, a vibration that they feel on some deep, invisible level. And while you're doing that, you're not checking your phone, you're not watching the clock, you're not doubting. You're living, you're evolving, you're glowing. That's when they begin to wonder, why can't I stop thinking about them? That's when you show up in their dreams, because you've already become the dream. It's not about control. It's not about manipulation. It's about alignment. When your energy matches the love you seek, it becomes impossible to ignore you. Your name, your face, your essence becomes etched in their consciousness. Not because you pushed your way in, but because your energy invited them. You don't make someone dream of you by chasing their attention. You do it by awakening the dream within yourself, by becoming someone unforgettable, not in theory, but in truth. And when you do that, the dream they have of you won't feel like fantasy. It will feel like destiny. You must become the dream first, not in theory, not in fantasy, but in reality. Before you ever ask the universe to bring your specific person into your life, you must ask yourself a deeper, more powerful question. Have I become the version of myself who naturally belongs in the relationship I desire? That question isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. Because no matter how much you want someone to notice you, dream about you, long for you, you cannot expect them to feel something you haven't first cultivated within yourself. The truth is, we attract what we are, not what we pretend to be. You cannot pretend to be whole on the outside while feeling insecure, needy, or empty on the inside. People pick up on energy more than they pick up on effort. You can send messages, post photos, drop hints, but none of it compares to the silent magnetic power of someone who knows who they are and doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable. That kind of self-possession is rare, and that rarity is what makes someone unforgettable. When you think about your specific person, what do you see? What version of you do you imagine them falling in love with? What qualities do you think they would admire in you? Now turn that focus inward. Become that version. Not for them, but because that version already lives inside you, waiting to be unleashed. This isn't about changing who you are to impress someone else. This is about stepping into the highest expression of who you already are. and letting that truth radiate so powerfully that it becomes impossible to ignore. Becoming the dream isn't about appearance, though looking and feeling your best can certainly boost confidence. It's about essence. It's about how you walk into a room, how you carry yourself when no one is watching, how you treat yourself when you're alone. You want someone to dream about you? Start dreaming about the life you want. Start living with such intentional joy, clarity, and purpose that anyone who thinks of you associates your name with light, warmth, and wonder. What we often forget is that love doesn't begin with someone else. It begins with self-respect. It begins with raising your standards, not just in relationships, but in how you speak to yourself, how you care for yourself, and how you handle your time, energy, and emotions. When you hold yourself to a higher level of self-worth, you automatically shift the dynamic of any relationship. You're no longer waiting to be picked. You've already chosen yourself, and that changes everything. Think about it. When someone is deeply fulfilled, when they're doing things that bring them joy, when they are grounded in their values and their purpose, they become irresistible. Why? Because they're not trying, they're simply being. And that natural state of fulfillment makes others curious, drawn in, even a little captivated. That's how you begin to take up space in someone's mind, not by trying to invade their thoughts, but by becoming someone who inspires thoughts. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's not about becoming flawless, it's about becoming real. Authenticity is magnetic. Vulnerability paired with strength is unforgettable. And when you stand in your truth, when you nurture your growth, when you tend to your own soul as if you are already deeply loved, you send a clear message to the universe: I am ready, I am the dream. And the beautiful paradox is that when you stop trying to be the object of someone else's desire and start being the subject of your own transformation, you automatically become desirable. You glow differently, you speak differently. Your silence even carries weight. And when your specific person does cross your path, whether in reality or in dreams, they won't just see the version of you they once knew. They'll feel something new, something elevated, something that lingers, because now you're not just someone wishing to be noticed. You've become someone impossible to forget. This is the foundation. Before love, before connection, before attention, you must first become the dream. Because the truth is, no one else can dream you into being, only you can. And when you do, the rest will follow. People rarely remember the exact words you said. They may forget the details of a conversation, the compliments you gave, or even the time you spent together. But what they never forget is how you made them feel. That emotional imprint, the silent language of connection, is what lingers in the mind long after the moment has passed. If you want your specific person to dream about you, to think about you when they least expect it, then it's not logic, looks, or cleverness that you need to master. It's emotional impact. Feelings are powerful. They bypass the mind and go straight to the heart. They leave traces in the nervous system. They become part of someone's inner landscape. That's why a single moment of deep emotional connection can outweigh weeks of surface-level interaction. You can send texts every day, talk for hours, and still be forgettable, unless, in the midst of all that, you've stirred something inside them, made them feel seen, made them feel safe, made them feel alive. Those are the feelings that stick. Those are the feelings that follow them into their dreams. Think about your own life. The people you still think about, the ones who left a mark on your soul, are not necessarily the ones who said the perfect thing or looked a certain way. They're the ones who made you feel something rare, something honest, something unforgettable. Maybe they made you feel deeply understood. Maybe they awakened a sense of excitement or peace. Or maybe they simply created a space where you could be your real self without judgment. That's the power of emotion. It creates memory, and memory is what brings someone back to you again and again. So when you're around your specific person, or even when you're visualizing them, shift your focus from trying to impress to trying to connect. Instead of asking, how can I make them like me? Ask, what can I help them feel in my presence that they don't feel anywhere else? Because when you become the source of a unique feeling in someone's life, you become irreplaceable. You're not just another name, you're an experience. And people don't forget experiences, they carry them. This is where emotional intelligence becomes your superpower. Learn to listen beyond words. Notice their energy, their silence, the things they're not saying. Pay attention to what lights them up, what softens them, what makes them open. Be present, not just physically, but emotionally. Show up with empathy, authenticity, and grounded presence. When someone feels deeply seen and accepted by you, even in a small way, it creates a ripple effect. That energy stays with them. It shows up later, in their quiet moments, in their dreams, in their subconscious mind. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the most weight. A glance that says, I see you. A tone of voice that soothes. A touch of kindness that disarms their defenses. It's the subtle layers of emotional energy that work beneath the surface. It's the vibe you leave behind that keeps them wondering, why do I keep thinking about them? Even in your absence, your emotional imprint can remain. That's why it's not about chasing someone or constantly being in contact. It's about the energy you leave behind when you're gone. Was your presence a source of pressure or peace? Did you make them feel like they had to earn your affection, or did they feel free and valued? Those emotional contrasts matter. Because while words can be forgotten, emotions get embedded. And when you truly understand this, you begin to take responsibility for the energy you bring. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes, and instead you start cultivating emotional clarity, warmth, and depth. You become the kind of person whose energy speaks volumes without needing to say much at all. In the end, people don't just dream about faces. They dream about feelings. The feeling of being wanted, the feeling of being inspired, the feeling of being safe, while challenged, accepted, loved. If you can master the art of creating those emotions, not as a performance, but from a place of truth, you'll find that your specific person doesn't just think of you, they feel you. And in that feeling, you live on in their mind, their heart, and even in their dreams. There is a quiet power in not chasing. In a world where we're conditioned to pursue what we want with intensity and urgency, it's easy to believe that the more we do, the closer we'll get to the outcome we desire. But when it comes to love, connection, and influence over someone's thoughts or emotions, chasing rarely works. In fact, it often does the opposite. It pushes people away. It creates resistance. It communicates lack, desperation, and attachment. And those are not attractive energies. You see, when you chase someone, whether it's with constant messages, overexposure, or the silent urgency that you carry in your energy, you're unconsciously telling them that you believe they are the prize and you are hoping to be chosen. That imbalance immediately affects the dynamic. It shifts you from being the magnet to being the seeker. And seekers, no matter how sincere, often repel what they most desire. Not because they're unworthy, but because their energy is off. Attraction isn't something you force, it's something you allow. It's born from inner wholeness, not outward pursuit. It arises when you know who you are, when you value your presence, and when you no longer need validation to feel enough. When that shift happens inside you, your energy begins to change. You stop trying to pull people toward you, and instead you naturally draw them in. Why? Because self-assurance is magnetic. People feel safe, intrigued, and inspired around someone who is anchored in their own worth. Energetic alignment is about becoming the version of you that matches the reality you desire. If you want someone to dream about you, think of you, or feel a pull toward you, then your energy must reflect someone who already believes in their own value and doesn't need anyone to complete them. That's the energy of alignment. It's not passive or indifferent, it's potent. It's the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to beg for attention because it already commands it. Think of the people who have captivated your attention without even trying. They weren't necessarily the loudest or the most demanding. They didn't chase you. They simply existed in a state of certainty, of presence, of calm magnetism. And that made them unforgettable. That's the essence of true attraction. It comes from being rooted, from having something real within that others can feel. When you stop chasing, you create space. Space for the other person to lean in. Space for their curiosity to grow. Space for your energy to speak louder than your actions. Chasing often interrupts this natural rhythm. It's like constantly knocking on a door that would have opened on its own if you had just waited a little longer. Attraction, on the other hand, respects timing. It honors boundaries. It understands that what is meant for you doesn't require force, only alignment. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you become intentional. You focus your energy inward instead of outward. You build a life that excites you, habits that elevate you, and a mindset that empowers you. You become so deeply aligned with your own joy and purpose that your energy becomes irresistible, not because you're trying to be noticed, but because you're simply glowing in your own lane. Ironically, when you stop chasing someone, they start to feel the shift. They notice the absence of pressure. They become more aware of your value. Your silence begins to speak louder than your words ever did. Your absence begins to stir their attention more than your presence ever demanded. Why? Because now you're not reaching, you're radiating. And radiance is attractive. The energy of chasing says, I need you to validate me. The energy of attraction says, I already know who I am, and if you're meant for me, you meet me here. One is exhausting and filled with anxiety. The other is peaceful, magnetic, and powerful. When you operate from that space, you don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You simply are it, and they feel it. So let go of the chase. Reclaim your power. Shift your focus from getting someone to notice you to becoming someone worth remembering. When you embody that energy, attraction becomes effortless. You don't run after love. You become the kind of person love runs toward. Your presence is more than your body in a room. It's more than the words you speak or the things you do while you're around someone. Real presence, true, unforgettable presence, is an energy, a frequency, a vibration that leaves something behind. When it's authentic, it lingers. Long after the conversation ends, long after you walk away, long after you've stopped trying to be noticed, that's what creates an echo in someone's mind. That's what stays with them and stirs something deep within, sometimes so subtly they don't even know why they're thinking of you. But they are. Presence isn't about being loud or overly charismatic. It's not about dominating a room or being the center of attention. Some of the most powerful presences are quiet, grounded, and calm. They don't need to perform, they simply are. And that's what makes them unforgettable. There's a peace in their energy, a sense of wholeness, a deep knowing that they don't need to prove anything to anyone. That kind of self-possession leaves an imprint. It leaves behind a feeling, a question, a memory. And that's what echoes in someone else's subconscious. When you cultivate this kind of presence, you create space for deeper emotional impact. You become someone who isn't just seen, but felt. And that feeling is what slips into the spaces between moments. into the silences, into dreams, into quiet thoughts at the end of the day. It's not about manipulation or trying to make someone think of you. It's about being so aligned, so fully yourself, that your presence speaks for itself, even in your absence. Most people think attraction is built during interaction, but often it's what happens after that matters most. What someone feels when they're alone, what memory surfaces unexpectedly, what emotional imprint replays in their mind. When your presence is real, intentional, and grounded, it becomes more than a moment. It becomes an experience. People don't just remember you, they remember how they felt around you. They replay your laugh, your gaze, the way you made them feel understood or inspired or safe. That's the echo. That's what revisits them long after you've gone. To create that kind of presence, you must be connected to yourself first. You must be fully engaged in the now, not distracted, not performing, not trying to get a reaction. People can feel when your attention is fragmented. They can also feel when your energy is focused, sincere, and open. Presence is created by being fully alive in the moment, with your words, your eyes, your heart. It's about listening deeply, not just to respond, but to understand. It's about speaking with intention, not to impress, but to express truth. Those things carry weight. They're rare. And because they're rare, they become memorable. Letting your presence echo doesn't mean constantly being around someone. In fact, distance often amplifies the effect. When you step away with grace, without clinging, chasing, or needing to be remembered, you paradoxically become more difficult to forget. Why? Because silence, when paired with emotional depth, creates mystery, and mystery is magnetic. Your absence can speak volumes when your presence was deeply felt. This is why trying too hard often backfires. Constant messages, oversharing, forced interactions, they don't leave room for an echo. They fill every corner and leave nothing to be missed. But when you allow space for someone to feel your energy without your constant input, you give them room to notice what lingers, what remains, what whispers. And the most powerful echoes are not loud, they are subtle, emotional, and often arrive when someone least expects it. They might hear your name and feel a pull. They might pass a place you were together and feel warmth. They might hear a song or a phrase that brings you to mind. That is the effect of presence. Not just existing, but imprinting. Not just touching a person's life, but leaving something within it that quietly vibrates long after. When you live with intention, when you align your words and actions with your true self, when you carry yourself with confidence and care, your presence becomes a gift. It doesn't fade. It doesn't require reminders. It echoes. It revisits. It stirs. And that's how you begin to exist in someone's dreams. Not because you forced yourself in, but because your energy made a home there. There is something undeniably magnetic about a person who is living their truth. Someone who walks in alignment with their highest self, who honors their passions, their values, and their unique voice. That kind of person doesn't need to seek approval or chase attention. They become the attention. They become the light in the room, the energy that shifts the atmosphere, the presence that lingers in the minds and hearts of others. And when it comes to that specific person you want to reach, when you want them to think of you, dream of you, feel drawn to you, there is no greater strategy than becoming the embodiment of your own dream. You don't attract someone by trying to mold yourself into what you think they want. You attract them by becoming fully and unapologetically who you are. This is what living your dream does. It elevates your vibration. It lights you up. It makes you magnetic without effort. People can feel it when you're lit from within, when you're inspired, when you wake up with purpose and move through the world with joy. That kind of energy speaks louder than words. It whispers through the unseen, and people begin to notice, even when you're not trying to be noticed. Most people spend their energy looking outward, trying to figure out what the other person wants, what they should say or do to gain attention, but in doing so, they often lose their own spark. They become watered down versions of themselves, always adapting, always adjusting. That energy doesn't inspire dreams. It doesn't leave an imprint. What leaves an imprint is authenticity, purpose, passion, the kind of bold, radiant energy that only comes from living life on your terms. When you begin to live your dream, whether that means pursuing your career with fire, developing your creative gifts, exploring new ideas, or simply cultivating joy in your everyday routine, you send out a signal. The signal says, I know who I am, I know what I'm building, and I'm not waiting for anyone to complete me. That is powerful, that is rare, and people are drawn to what is rare. The person you desire begins to sense this shift. They may not consciously realize it, but they feel it. Suddenly your energy has changed. You're no longer reaching for them, you're reaching higher. You're expanding. And that expansion creates intrigue, it creates attraction. Because people are deeply drawn to those who are growing, evolving, and daring to live fully. It awakens something in them. It makes them question their own path. It makes them wonder, what is it about this person that feels so alive? And that feeling, that curiosity, that's the seed of a dream. That's what enters their subconscious. That's what keeps them up at night thinking of you. Not because you asked them to, not because you forced it, but because they can't help it. You become an energetic match to their desire for something more. Not just a person, but a symbol of something deeper. Possibility, purpose, presence. When you embody your higher self, you show them what's possible. You give them a glimpse of a life they didn't know they wanted until they saw you living it. You become a reflection of what they're searching for, but may not yet have the words to express. That is how you become their dream, by living yours. Not in arrogance or ego, but in soul alignment, in truth, in light. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. Living your dream doesn't mean you figured everything out. It means you're committed to the journey. You're saying yes to growth, to passion, to love, to expression. And that energy becomes contagious. It radiates. It inspires. It pulls people in. Not because you're trying, but because you are. So instead of waiting for them to notice you, start noticing yourself. Fall in love with your own life. Get so busy creating, expanding, and aligning that you don't even realize you've become the vision someone else has been dreaming about. Because in the end, you don't just want someone to be attracted to you, you want them to see you. The real you. The you who is lit up by life. The you who is already whole. The you who is living their dream. And when they do, it won't be because you chased them, it'll be because you became the dream they didn't even know they were searching for. In the end, making your specific person dream about you isn't about tactics, tricks, or constantly being in their face. It's about energy, alignment, and presence. When you become the most authentic, radiant version of yourself, you naturally begin to occupy space in their mind and heart. It's not forced, it's not manufactured, it's felt. You become the person who lingers in their thoughts because you've mastered your own frequency, because you've stopped chasing and started attracting. By living your dream, feeling deeply, refusing to chase, and allowing your presence to echo long after you've left, you transform into more than a memory. You become a magnetic force. You stop trying to be someone else's fantasy and instead you become your own. And in doing so, you become theirs too. This journey isn't about changing who you are to win someone over. It's about returning to your truth and letting that truth speak for itself. The right person will feel it. They'll see it. And without even realizing it, they'll start to dream of you, not because you asked them to, but because your energy left them no choice.